Now try to picture this. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri meeting with the acting Foreign Minister of Afghanistan Amir Khan Muttaqi, who's also a member of Taliban. Now this is in stark contrast to what happened in the year 1999. Because we know that was the year where Indian Airlines plane which was coming from Kathmandu to Delhi, it was hijacked by Pakistani terrorists and ultimately they took this aircraft to Kandahar located in Afghanistan. Now at that time, Afghanistan also was ruled by Taliban, and this active or absence of engagement between India and Taliban created a whole set of problems. As security officials were not present in Afghanistan to deal with the crisis, and as a result, these officials had to be sent from Delhi to Kandahar in order to negotiate the release of passengers and the aircraft which was stationed in Kandahar. Now, this was the year 1999. However, coming to 2025, everything has now been changed. Because as we saw in the news article that India has now decided to actively deal with Taliban, and at that process, a high-level meeting undertook between Indian government official and the Talibani government official who are also the members of Afghani government. Now, this meeting or interaction between Taliban and India, it started to take place right after the US Air Force aircraft left the Kabul. And as a result, immediately after that event, India's ambassador in Afghanistan, he decided to meet with an Talibani official. And since then, India has tried to increase its outreach with Taliban. As we have seen, an Indian official, particularly being a rank of Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, has actively engaged with Taliban by holding a meeting in neutral locations like Dubai, Qatar, etc. But now this meeting between the Foreign Secretary and the Foreign Minister or the acting Foreign Minister of Talibani government signals a shift in Delhi's policy towards actively engaging with Taliban. So let us try to first of all analyze what are the areas of interaction or discussions happened between these two officials. Now, what is India's primary security concern? You know, it is the menace of terrorism. Now, what India wants from Afghanistan that it should not host any person who is engaged in terrorist activity, particularly with respect to India. So that is why this is the primary area of concern which has led India to increase its interaction with whosoever party or organization is ruling in the Afghanistan. Because in the past we have seen Pakistan's intelligence services, primarily the ISI, has actively used the Afghani territory and the people belonging to Afghan origin, and they have forced them to undertake terrorist related activities in India, particularly in the region of Jammu and Kashmir. However, if India will actively now engage with Taliban, it can ensure that the security concerns of India, particularly with respect to terrorism, they are taken care of adequately. Also, India has historically been favoring the development or construction of development projects in Afghanistan. As we have seen in the past, Indian government enabled the construction of Salma Dam. Indian government also led to a construction of parliament in Kabul, and all of this has been participatory or possible because of India's decision to actively participate and construct development projects in the Afghani territory. So this existing presence of developmental initiatives and the cause of frequently or furthering the developmental initiatives is also the reason why India has now to decidedly actively engage with Taliban. Now, as India, it has stated in the statement that it is considering engaging in development projects in Afghanistan in near future, and you understand, blessing of any power or dispensation which is ruling Kabul is essential to India's developmental interest. Also, whenever Kabul has faced any kind of difficulties or has bear the brunt of any natural calamity, Delhi has been at the forefront of supporting the people of Afghanistan, irrespective of whosoever is in the power. For example, recently an earthquake incident happened in Afghanistan, and India, it sent supplies of medical aid as well as food supplies to Afghanistan, even without considering that Taliban was in power. Also, during COVID-19 pandemic, we saw Indian government providing material support in health sector, particularly medicines, life support units, vaccines, etc. This highlights India's concern primarily with respect to Afghanistan is not with the government or with the ruling dispensation, but New Delhi's sensitivity, it lies with people of Afghanistan, and hence it wants to make sure that people of Afghanistan who have very close ties with people of India, their interest needs to be taken care of. Also, support for rehabilitation of Afghani refugees was a huge cause of concern, because during the time of US's presence in Afghanistan and afterwards when Taliban came into power, there was this section of people, particularly the minority communities of Afghanistan, that is Sikhs and Hindus, they were facing a huge brunt of religious-based persecution. For example, you all must have seen the images where a jothedar of a particular Gurudwara located in Kabul, they were forced to evict from Kabul and take the religious scriptures back to Delhi. So this was India's primary cause of concern, that is the Afghani refugees, they need to be rehabilitated, and also there needs to be a window where they should be again moved back to Afghanistan and ensure their safety in region is India's primary security concern. So this is why India has not shied away from providing humanitarian assistance to Afghani people. It has provided them with material support, be it medicines, vaccines, or life support systems. It has ensured that the Afghani refugees and their interests are taken care of, and if there is some sort of danger to them, New Delhi does not even shy away from relocating them back to India. Further, India also has a key economic interest in Afghanistan, because in order to promote the development of Afghanistan in general, it wants to ensure that the trade between India and Afghanistan takes place. But there's a caveat to it, because you have to understand Afghanistan is a landlocked country. So for India to access markets in Afghanistan, it has two ways. One is through Pakistan, which you understand in current geopolitical conditions is quite tough. And the other route is through Iran's Chabahar port. And that is why India has undertaken the development of Chabahar port primarily for the reason that it is able to reach the markets and geography of Afghanistan. Now, this is very crucial for India to access Afghanistan, and whenever India has faced difficulties in construction of this port, particularly by American sanctions, it has tried to highlight to Americans that India's development of Chabahar port is not from a security point of view, but from a trade and connectivity point of view. Also, the sunrise sector in the cooperation between India and Afghanistan has emerged in form of cricketing ties. Because you understand, cricket is a sort of a religion in India. Whereas on the other hand, young people of Afghanistan, they are increasingly becoming adoptive of cricket, and even the Afghani cricket team has fared quite well in the multilateral tournaments. And as a result, to promote the cricketing ties between these two nations, India has allowed the Afghani cricket team to utilize Indian stadiums and facilities to undertake their practice and hold even the matches in India. So this is how India, for various reasons, be it security related, be it humanitarian causes, be it economy related, or even society related reasons, have decided now to actively engage with Taliban. Because India's sensitivity and primary cause lies not with whosoever is ruling in Afghanistan, but ultimately it lies with Afghani people. Now, there may be some reasons why India has decided to engage with Taliban now and not 20 or 30 years back. So let us try to understand what are the reasons primarily that has enabled India or forced India to interact with Taliban. Now, there are many active regional and inter-regional players in the region who has had impact on Taliban's or Afghani nation in general. The first regional power is called Iran. And Iran in the past, particularly in past few years, have mirrored Delhi's cause of concern with respect to Kabul. As you understand, Delhi being a democratic country, or India being a democratic country, wants to ensure that the rights of minorities are taken care in Afghanistan. And the participation of women should be there in Afghanistan's polity economy. And this cause of concern that India held toward Afghanistan was the similar cause of concern that even Iran had towards Afghanistan. But you understand right now, Iran, it is actively engaged in a conflict with a country called Israel. And hence, Iran's focus, first of all, is to contain the expansion of Israel and also the attacks conducted by Israel in the region. And therefore, Iran's focus towards Afghanistan has somewhat weakened considerably. So this was Iran. Now, other important power which has an effect on Afghanistan is Russia. As you understand, Russia had invaded Afghanistan previously. However, Russia's equation with other regional powers in the region, particularly with Syria, you understand, has reduced. So now what Russia wants to ensure that the presence of terrorists in the Middle Eastern and South Asian region are not attacking Russia or are detrimental to Russia's security interest. So Russia historically wants to engage with Taliban right now so as to protect its security interest. But even Russia, you understand, its focus lies currently elsewhere because it is engaged in a war with Ukraine. So because of that, Russia's focus right now towards Taliban is not so much as it was required to be. Further, the void which was created when US left Kabul, it was filled by the other regional superpower called China. Because China, it has trying to make inroads into Afghanistan by exchanging ambassadors. As we know that China allowed Kabul to station its Taliban-based ambassador into China, and so has China reciprocated the move by placing its ambassador in Kabul. So this highlights how politically and diplomatically China is trying to build a relationship with Taliban. Now, China's intention to fill the void left by US in Afghanistan is not just from a point of view of international politics, but also China has active economic interest in Afghanistan because it wants to undertake development of Afghanistan natural resources, tap this natural resources by mining and processing these minerals so as to utilize these minerals for its economic activities. So this is why it is trying to undertake development, particularly with the mining sector of Afghanistan, which has historically remained untapped because of disturbances in the Afghanistan. Also, it is trying to undertake a Kabul and urban development project, which highlights how presence of Chinese companies and diplomats in the region can make things difficult for India. Because you understand, China and India are antithetical to each other. And also their closeness is not as much as India's closeness with America, or for that matter with Russia is. So this is why the void which was left by US is now filled with China, and this puts India into an uncomfortable and tricky situation. Also, Taliban's benefactor historically has been Pakistan, because India has always seen Taliban from the lens of Pakistan. And as Taliban, it had a close relationship previously with Pakistan's army and its intelligence services, India always felt that Taliban acted against India's interest. However, this has changed now, because earlier the benefactor of Taliban, that was Pakistan, is now actively engaged in a conflict, and now this conflict has become so drastic that Pakistani armed forces is undertaking bombing missions deep into Afghanistan, and this has left Taliban in a lurch. Also, US will witness the return of Donald Trump into presidency, and it was actually in Donald Trump's first tenure that the move of withdrawal of America from Taliban it started. And this void which is created by US, we understand was filled with China. But now, since Donald Trump is returning to power, there is a chance that US will now also actively engage with Taliban so as to protect its own regional and strategic interest. And this situation, that is the enabling or the absence of regional powers in Afghanistan, which is filled by China, has put India into a tricky situation. However, previously, as I've told you, India's point of view towards Taliban was more ideological basis. As India, as you can understand, is a democratic country, and hence India's cause of concern with respect to Taliban-ruled Afghanistan was that the minorities' interest was not taken care of, or the women's participation in Afghanistan's society, politics and economy was not as it was expected. However, understanding the changing geopolitical scenario in the region, India has tried to drop its ideological position and rather adopt a more realist position on its relationship with Afghanistan. And this is why India is now trying to actively engage with Afghanistan in order to protect its security interest, in order to undertake developmental projects, in order to support humanitarian aid and flow of goods and services to Afghanistan, and also to promote its close societal ties between Indian and Afghani people. So this was all for today's video. Stay tuned for more such videos on any important issue.